All righty. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for attending our webinar today. We're excited to host Daniel Schultz from Schultz Collaborative. He's going to be talking about the secret to gaining a positively unfair advantage in your go-to-market. And just so everybody knows, for logistics, if you guys have questions throughout the webinar, please send them in the chat, and I'll ask Dan while we're going through the presentation, and we can also ask more questions at the end. And this also is being recorded, so if you have to jump off early, everybody will get a copy of this. But to give you guys just a quick background on the Combine, I'm Josh Demers. I'm the program manager of the Combine. We're an AgTech Incubator here based in Lincoln, Nebraska, but we serve statewide, and we support high growth ag and food technology entrepreneurs through ideation all the way to commercialization. So you can learn more about about the Combine by scanning the QR code on this page. But a little more about us: we offer an incubation space here on Nebraska Innovation Campus. We help out with a lot of the operational assistance. So anything from creating logos, websites. We go through different modules on how to set up KPIs and go through fundraising rounds. And then we also have what we call our Insights Network, where we partner with local producers all across Nebraska to test out some of these innovations that are coming from Combine companies. And one more thing before I throw it off to Daniel here, we do have an upcoming conference on July 20th called AgTech Connect. We're gonna have we had a great showing last year of startups, founders, investors, other people that are playing in the ag tech space. So if you'd like to attend and learn more, you can visit us at agtechconnect.co or scan the QR code to learn more. But other than that, I will stop sharing my screen, and Dan, I'll let you take over.
Awesome. All right. Let me know when you can see it.
Good to go.
Awesome. All right. Hey, thanks so much for everybody joining today. Really, really appreciate it. I'm excited. I know we had to push it back from last week. I had some internet troubles. So thank you so much for your patience and your willingness to rejoin. Really, 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 really appreciate that. And do not take your attention here for granted. So we'll try to move through some things here that are going to be valuable. Again, like Josh said, my name is Dan Schultz. I'm a CMO and advisor, so I serve as a fractional CMO to a number of different ag tech companies across the space, all over the world, and have the benefit of working with them and working with a number of super interesting innovators. And so I love this space. I have a passion for it. What we're going to talk about today is this go-to-market. This sounds like a really aggressive title. It probably was. I was probably trying to do it that way, right? Run it a little bit aggressively to say, hey, we have this secret to gaining a positively unfair advantage on your go-to-market. The reason that we wanted to do that, the reason that I want to do that is because I do believe that this is a secret that will help unlock enormous value in your go-to-market. I spent the better part of the last decade failing over and over and over again as a marketer, trying to discover these secrets and come up with them. So want to share some of the findings with you guys today and really start a conversation here. So please put questions in the chat as we go, and I'm going to spend as much time as it takes. I'll stay on as long as it takes to answer all the questions we have. So I love stories, and I'm going to tell a couple of stories today. So I hope that's okay with everybody. But really, what we want to put the first story I want to start out with is the two shoe salesmen. So who is this presentation for? There's a story of two shoe salesmen who were sent to a remote African village. One of the shoe salesmen sent back to his distributor and said, "There's no opportunity here. Nobody wears shoes." The second shoe salesman, same village, same market opportunity, sent word back to his distributor and said, "There's enormous market opportunity here. Nobody wears shoes." And so this presentation is for somebody who wants to think like that second shoe salesman, somebody who wants to look at market opportunity that does not yet exist and create exponential value. Because inside of this ag tech ecosystem, we're really, really young. This is a young business. This is a young place to be. It's an immature marketplace. And so something that's really important is looking for how do we create net new opportunity, net new value in the marketplace. Generally speaking, if you're looking at if you're looking at different go-to-market strategies, different go-to-market presentations that are going to be in books or on webinars like this one, generally speaking, they're going to tell you how to compete and go to market as a mature marketplace, as a mature business. What we're going to talk about here today is not necessarily going and capturing demand, because I believe, and I'm going to try to prove it today, that we have massively over-rotated on demand capture, and we have really underinvested and underutilized demand creation. So what we're going to talk about here today is how do we go about creating that new demand, creating, you know, the blue ocean that we're able to swim into. The problem, the number one problem that I see as I observe this space, as I work with a bunch of different companies in this space, and just across business in general, is that there are three types of approaches that companies generally take to the marketplace, and they do this because they have a fundamental belief that they're competing for existing market demand with a better brand or a better product or a better customer relationship. And at the end of the day, these are all fundamentally incapable of helping you create an exponential outcome in the marketplace. So we're going to talk about all three of them, but we'll just go through them really quickly here. What you need to think about is brand-led is all about us. We're great. Product-led is our product is great. Customer-led is you're great. What can we do for you? What can we build for you? Now, none of these is wrong in and of themselves. These are all important parts of your go-to-market, but as a starting position, they're inadequate. So we'll go ahead to the next one. The reason that they're inadequate. So we'll start with the brand-led one. Most companies who are thinking in this brand-led paradigm, they're thinking we need to be the biggest brand, we need to be the best, we need to be right, and you want to spend and spend and spend. You hear this a lot inside of the marketing world, inside of my world. A lot of marketers will say things like awareness, right? Run awareness campaigns, and those are fine, but awareness campaigns also have to have an objective. And the reason for it is this stat right here. We think that we're competing with all these different competitors for market opportunity. But at the end of the day, what the research shows is that in B2B environments, in enterprise environments, 40 to 60% of sales end in no decision. And that is extremely prevalent inside of agriculture, right? How many of you guys have gone out with your customers and gone to them with your solution, and you put it out there, and the first question you get back is some form of why do anything at all, right? It's some form of why isn't the way that, you know, my granddad did it, or my dad, or my parents, my folks, why do I need this fundamental change? And, you know, marketing and our entire go-to-market strategy is based around the idea that there needs to be some sort of change that happens inside of the marketplace. And so if we don't get that, if we try to be brand-led and try to say it's all about us, we miss that change. We miss the need for that change inside the customer's mind. The second one, again, this is product-led growth. This is the lie of product-led growth. Funny story for you guys. It took 300 years for human civilization to go from a potter's wheel to turn that wheel upright and using it for transportation. So if it took 300 years for the wheel to catch on, what hope does your product have in randomly catching product-led growth? It almost never happens. It's very unlikely. Your odds are low. I love great products, right? Like I'm passionate about this space. I'm passionate about improving the lives of farmers. I live and work among them. But at the end of the day, asking a farmer what they want, or showing them a product and assuming that they know how to value it properly, or even showing somebody like a distributor, you know, it's not because our customers aren't intelligent people. It's because they just don't have enough time to focus on your product and say, oh, I could think about this working 7 different ways. You have to go and show them how that product is going to change their life. You have to wrap it inside of a context for them. So product-led growth just doesn't work. Again, the reality is that the market value is what it's taught to value. So we learn markets are not like the weather. A lot of people, you'll even see this inside of business journals, right? You go out to the Washington Post, you go out to the New York Times and read about markets, and it says, oh, the market is finicky. The market is fluctuating. The market is, and it's almost talked about if you were an alien that came down, it's almost talked about as if the market is a person. And at the end of the day, the market is set up by people. The market is organized by us in a way that makes, you know, our product potentially advantageous and other products disadvantageous. And so what we want to do, what we want to acknowledge here is that it actually requires this whole strategy requires us to take action first and to be the first actors to impose our will on the marketplace. And now we'll get into what that means a little bit later, because that can sound like, you know, the brand led side of things. But what it really means is finding a vision for where we're going, because we need to teach our customers what lens they need to see their problem through so that our solution is the best for them. So I'm going to tell another little story here. This is a funny one that kind of talks about the problem with product-led growth. Does anybody know who this guy is? Maybe not. But Joshua Bell is he's a famous violinist. And in 2007, he teamed up with a reporter at the Washington Post. And the night before, he had sold out this huge theater in Washington, D.C. Generally, Joshua Bell at the time was making about $1,000 a minute playing the violin. So he would stand up, and people would pay upwards of $100 a ticket in 2007 to go see this guy play the violin. He teamed up with the Washington Post and did this study. He went to the DC Metro and stood next to a garbage can, dressed in, he just dressed like a normal guy, like a ball cap and a sweatshirt, and started playing the violin. He played for 43 minutes, and he played six well executed. I mean, this guy's he's a virtuoso, well executed songs on his $14 million violin. And he played for 43 minutes. And after those 43 minutes, a lot of people thought that he'd make maybe a couple $100. A crowd would start to gather. They weren't sure what was going to happen, but what actually happened, if you know the story, is almost nobody paid attention. It took 3 minutes for anybody to even look at this violinist, who is, this world-class violinist. They walked on by. 1,097 people walked past him, and he made about just over $30 in loose change over those 43 minutes, which is quite a bit different for anybody who's a math person here from making $1,000 per minute. So what we learn here is, if Joshua Bell, if the greatest violinist in the world, needs context in which to wrap his skill, in which to wrap his talent, so does your product. The third one, the third issue that we see, that we run into here, is talking about talking to customers and trying to ask customers what they want us to deliver them. There's a huge problem with this that exists inside of the marketplace, is that people can't imagine a scenario in which they're not already living. Most people have trouble saying what if inside their daily lives. I mean, I know most of you probably know what that's like. Most of you guys have a vision inside of your business, but inside of your daily life, you've got kids, you've got things to do, you have work to get done, you have projects to execute, and so you move along your day, and you make a lot of assumptions about the way that your day is going to go, and most people can't imagine a world in which they're not actively living. So this is a great quote from Henry Ford. As everybody knows, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, right? So real innovations don't actually exist to the marketplace until we tell them that they exist. So we have to go and tell people about why they exist, why they matter, what they do. And the biggest assumption that's made inside of AgTech today is that our product or the customer is going to unlock that for us, and they're just not. So again, we've talked through brand-led companies, we've talked through the problem with product-led companies and customer-led companies. What I'd like to bring forward is this idea of a problem-led company. We really want to advertise the problem, because what consumers know is that the company who advertises against the problem, who says this is a big problem, is the category king in that space. And so if you want to be the category king, if you want your go-to-market to flow effectively, you really have to focus on that problem. Again, the company that defines the problem and designs the solution is best positioned to dominate the space. So I think this is if everybody takes one thing away from this presentation today, it should be this line right here. The company that defines the problem and designs the solution is best positioned to dominate the space. You can look at this across multiple different companies that exist inside of the business world. Famous companies: Uber, versus Lyft, Airbnb versus VRBO, right? Like the Airbnb, their market capitalization is enormous compared to VRBO. And Uber's likewise is enormous compared to Lyft. And so what we want to be is we want to be the company that defines the problem and designs the solution so that we can dominate the space. Again, this is another piece of research that is just going to back this up. On average, the category leader earns more than 3/4 of the market cap in any given space. And so what we're seeing as we see people's attention spans dwindle, right? Some of you are fading on it right now. Stay with me though, because we're getting to something good here. But 76% of the market capitalization in any given space goes to the category leader, the one who is defining that solution and who is most accurately setting up the problem and setting up the lens through which the customer can see their problem. So the one who's setting the conditions for a conversation to take place is the one who's going to win the majority of the marketplace. And so what we want to be as our companies is we want to be that company who sets the tone, who sets the conversation, and is the deciding factor in the space. So again, how do we increase our odds? So if you stayed with me thus far, what we found out, what we've seen is that 40 to 60% of B2B decisions are going to be made, are going to end in no decision, right? We're going to keep doing what we're doing because it's not that big of a problem ultimately. So we have to define the problem. What we also know is that 76% of the market cap in any given space is going to go to one company. So how do we be that company? How do we define ourselves as that company? And the way that we do that is by designing our category. So again, there's brand-led companies, so they're building a great company, which is what we should do. There's product-led companies, they're building a great product. We should definitely do that. There's customer-led companies who are building a great customer experience, and we should definitely do that as well. But most importantly, to tie that all together is to be a problem-led company and build a great marketplace in which our solution can be the best outcome for our customer and can set them up for success in the future. So this is a new lens for business, right? The brand way is old. It's the sales, product, customer-led. Think of companies like IBM from a brand perspective. Think of the 1970s, 1980s type of business. Nobody gets fired for buying IBM. Well, today they do. Today they get fired for that. So it's an old way of thinking. We can't be anchored to the competition anymore. We can't be the Pepsis of the ag tech world, saying we're better than Coke, we're better than Coke, we're better than Coke. Who are you thinking about? You're thinking about Coca-Cola. So don't anchor to the solution that you're trying to fight against. Don't try to be the best solution in the marketplace, because best is a matter of how you're setting up that problem. So you have to provide the lens through which you're the best solution. And then don't sell on feature function. This is the biggest problem inside of ag tech is because ag tech is over indexed at the beginning for big grand solutions, saying the world was going to change, we're going to disrupt agriculture, we're going to disrupt the marketplace. Because of that, what we really see now is this like shift back to pure numbers and numerical value. And the problem with that is that those are good things to have as proof points later on, but to begin with those proof points takes the emotion completely out of selling, and it prohibits your customer from getting in the same mental place that you were in when you found out, hey, this is the greatest solution in the world. So find out how to get them in that market, that mental space, and that's going to be done through strategic story, owning the why, and having a differentiated and well-positioned offering. It's really, really important that we have that strategic story, we have it well outlined, and that it all drives towards being problem-led. So again, this changes everything. It changes our focus from just product and sales to product sales and category, right? We have to make that triangle. We have to include the customer's opinion, right? The customer ultimately at the end of the day is going to be the one buying the solution, but we can't ask them. We have to show them where we're going and ask them if they want to join us for that. From a market potential position, existing total addressable market versus new category potential. We're moving to this new category potential as opposed to just staying in the stagnant total addressable market. From a problem perspective, we're going from known to new. from sales motion, we're going from pushing a rope, asking people, pushing a rope and saying, here's our thing, figure out how to use it. Here's our thing, go take it out into the field and see what it can do, to market pull, saying, here's the problem that we solve. And here, now we have the solution that you're going to be able to pull through and solve that problem. From, what the future is going to look like and how to define the future. It's, right now, a lot of companies are moving through product roadmap and saying, hey, this is, we're going to take you through, we're going to sit down with Bayer and take them through our 20-step product roadmap. And that's fine. It's an okay thing to do as a partner. But at the end of the day, if we want to create exponential outcomes that are going to increase the value of our company and increase the value of our customers' lives, we really want to look at this as a category blueprint, as opposed to a product roadmap. And then from scale, we want to move from channel partners to category ecosystem. Like, what are the different functions that fit inside of this category ecosystem that we need to think about? Who else is trying to solve a similar problem or an adjacent problem, so that we can work with them in a beneficial way, in a mutually beneficial way. What I'd say here is stop competing for market share, stop competing for the existing market, stop competing for capturing demand, stop doing messaging, stop promoting features, stop attacking competitors, and start creating a new space, unlocking new value, creating and capturing market pull, developing a point of view, evangelizing the category, and attacking the problem. That's what we really want to do. We don't want to focus on our competitors as the problem, because the minute that we anchor ourselves to a competitor, that's the minute that we make them the definitive category leader in our space, and we lose the high ground of being able to have the conversation on the terms that we want to have it with our customer. So we want to really attack the problem, because that gives us the proper position by which to have a customer conversation. And any CEO who's on the phone right now, I'll tell you, your number one job is not hiring people to fill roles for you right now. If you're in a new market category opportunity, your number one thing is to evangelize the category. All the CEOs that I work with, I sit down with them and we talk about how to talk about their solution, how to talk about the problem mainly, how to talk about the problem that their customers are facing, how they can sit down and really cast a vision for their company, because the E in CEO should stand for evangelist, right? We want to be the evangelist of the category that we're trying to bring about. And it's really important for our companies to have a point of view on the marketplace. That's the second thing that I go through with every company that I work with, is how do we figure out what our point of view is on this category to get people from where they are today to where they need to be tomorrow, so that this category makes sense for them. So now let's go through how we design this category. What we're going to do is we want to evaluate what's our vision, mission, who do we serve, what's the problem, right? So we want to take these evaluation questions and really look at, like, why did we start this thing? Why did we begin? What's the cause that is really behind what we're trying to do? Then we want to look at who, because the reality is you can't change everyone, right? There's about 3 to 7% of the marketplace that's probably in market or even open or frustrated enough to even listen to your pitch right at the beginning, right? If you're in an early stage environment, an early category creation environment, figuring out your who is really, really important. It's also really important not to try to convert too many of the super fans of other products or the perfectly contented with other products right now, because the more and more you try to dig into that marketplace, the more you build resistance for the future. Once those early adopters come and jump in, you don't want there to be a huge wall that you have to go over, because the one thing we know about people from human psychology is that people really, really want to be consistent. They want to maintain consistency as much as possible. None of us do it. None of us are actually logical in the way that we think and the way that we act. We don't actually work that way, but we do want to remain consistent. And so we want to make sure that we're getting our who really, really focused at the beginning. And then we want to define what's the problem. And so then number 2, we want to identify use cases for our solution, the potential ecosystem, who are those potential competitors and collaborators that we might need to work with. And then we want to activate and develop our business model. How are we going to go to market? Like, are we set up for a direct sales model? I would say that probably for about 85 to 90% of the people on the phone here today, the right way to go to market for you is going to be boots on the ground in the field, because you're doing education on the ground. Channel partnerships, channels do not historically, in my experience and in my study, channel partnerships do not pull through a solution that doesn't have market demand on the other end. And so it's really important to be educating the end user and the consumer and the person who's going to own that budget. So it's really important to probably have a sales force on the ground, but think through that. Sit down with your team, figure out what is the go-to-market that's going to work best for your business. And then what funding do we need, right? We're obviously having this conversation inside of a tight VC environment, but it's really, really important for us to think strategically about how we're going to go out for money, what type of money we're going to go with. And there's a lot of much smarter people that can talk to you about that inside the VC world and inside Invest Nebraska and at the Combine here. So with that, this is the number one idea, guys, is Victor Hugo has this fantastic quote that's on the screen here. That no force on earth can stop an idea whose time has come. For us as marketers and innovators inside the ag tech space, our job is to make it time, right? We have to believe when there's no reason to believe in a lot of cases. And so if you're going to do that, and everybody here on the phone is getting started. If you're going to believe when no one else is going to believe, then you might as well spend the time up front to make sure that you have the best chance at success possible. And so that's really what this is about. That's really what category design is all about. And with that, we can go through some questions. I think there's a couple questions in the chat. Josh, is that right?
Yeah, so we just had a question on if the recording of the presentation is going to be available. Yes, it is. We'll send that out to everybody. But yes, if you have a question for Dan, just please throw it in the chat, or you can ask to be unmuted as well if you'd like to ask it. So we'll see. I do have a couple questions though for you, Dan. And
yeah,
Dan,
absolutely.
I'm here. So I think all of this is great, but I think probably people on this webinar are wondering, how do I begin? Where do I start? Because sometimes it can feel so large and people need that tactical, like, okay, this is what I need to do. Yeah.
So I would sit down with your team and go through the questions that we sat down with here on how to design a category. Sit down with these 9 questions. There can be more than this, but these are the 9 questions I go through with my customers when I sit down with anybody. Another good thing to do, and this is not an advertisement. I don't care if you use me. I don't care if you use somebody else. Go through whoever you're currently working with, but have an outside person come in with your company who's maybe not who's got a fresh set of eyes to just be able to say, to sit down and kind of conglomerate all the findings. So sit down with your senior management team, whatever that looks like, whether that's you and your co-founder or you and your board, whatever that might look like. Pull in the strategic people who will help you answer these questions in an effective way so that you can accomplish that. But really sit down, answer these in depth, and build out a category blueprint for yourselves. I can point anybody who wants to reach out to me. I'll put my email up here at the end quick, but anybody who wants to reach out, I'm not going to solicit you. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. I have a newsletter that you can subscribe to if you'd like to, but you don't have to. Please, again, this is not selling. I really want you guys to go search this out for yourselves, figure out if it's the right solution for your company, but sit down with somebody who's not from inside your company. Sit down with your senior leaders and really go through these questions. Think about what the use cases of your technology are, what the potential ecosystem might look like from a category perspective. Who are those competitors? Who's trying to do something similar? Who are the potential collaborators? Who's solving an adjacent problem to us? We know that there's, if you're thinking about irrigation inside of ag tech, if you're thinking about equipment, et cetera, there is an enormous ecosystem that is currently built up, and you don't want to think that you're going to be able to solve everybody's problems, right? So think about who are those potential collaborators, who are the competitors, who's trying to solve a similar problem. Then develop your business model. This is super important. As startups, we over-index for distribution, right? So we really over-index for, we think we'll be able to raise our prices later. And so we start out with a free product because we want to get mass distribution. We want to get mass usage. And it's actually a lot harder. What the data shows and what studies show and my experience shows is that it's really hard to raise prices later on. So spend your time to develop your business model, figure out how you're going to make money. Even if you do start with that freemium model, make sure you have a path to revenue, because that's going to be really important as you move from, your seed round to your A to B to C, showing that traction in the marketplace in the form of dollars, because at the end of the day, it's great to change the industry and we want to have a vision mission, but at the end of the day, if the cash register don't have that thing, right? So it's like, nobody's going to buy your product. You have a real problem. You want to make sure that you're setting the value in the customer's mind appropriately up front.
That's excellent, Dan. And as you go through and design your category, you say you go through these 3 steps. Yep. What have you seen be effective to really get the word out about, hey, this is the problem that we're trying to solve, like evangelizing that problem?
Yeah, I think it's just, figure out whatever is your right way to do this. The right approach for your company. It depends on who your CEO is and what type of personality they have. I prefer writing. I'm a writer by trade. So that's what I do. So I like to write, but there's people who like video, whatever it is, just figure out how to get your thoughts out into the world and start publishing on a weekly cadence basis, like publish often, because, LinkedIn is a great place to do these free, you can do free posts, get good distribution for your message, and test these messages out, right? Because if you put out a message into the world and it totally flops, you can use that data and then inform your opinion a little bit and say, hey, this is how maybe that idea wasn't quite the right one to work with. So after you go through and evaluate, what is your vision mission, you sit down with your team and really come up with that idea. It's really important to figure out how to get that out into the world as quickly as possible and start testing it. Don't spend money on it up front. I would say go as organic as you possibly can, because there's a potential to waste an enormous amount of capital on trying to do paid media before you should, inappropriately.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
So just go out and publish, and try to find different people who will give you positive feedback on it as well. I mean, that at the end of the day, you're going to be going out to customers with this. So as much as we say, don't be customer led, we also want to be customer minded. So we go out with our customers and say, hey, does this make sense to you? Does this flow well? And if, in a lot of cases, what we really want to try to figure out here, the perfect balance is we want to figure out how to get word of mouth distributed, right? Because word of mouth is, and always will be the best form of marketing for us. So how do you put the right words in your customer's mouth? And a part of that is figuring out what your category is, how you define what it is, right? Like what is it? And then disseminating that information properly to your customers, to your best, those people who are having great experiences with you, how you give that to them so that they can share that with the guy at the coffee shop.
That's excellent, Dan. And, just a quick follow-up question on that is, I believe, after hearing this, if you are just starting out your company or idea, it's easy to, kind of follow this guide to create, this problem-led approach. But say, you're like 2-3 years along as a startup, and then you have to get people to fall in line or, adopt this practice. What have you seen work in that realm?
Are you talking about like internal internal stakeholders?
Like your employees and everything else to really, adopt this practice.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a huge problem and a huge challenge. And so it does work better if you start earlier. But I would say the most important thing, and this is, I do not take on clients where the CEO is not intimately involved, where the engagement's not with the CEO because of this specific problem, because I've had experiences working with the CMO. And look, I am a fractional CMO. And so advising those people, I've sat in that seat as a CMO before in the past. I know that if the CEO is not bought into it, then the product team's not going to be into it. It's just going to be a marketing exercise. Then this is a total waste of your time and you shouldn't even start. Like, don't even go down this path if your CEO is not bought into it and willing to lead it, because it has to be an organizational exercise. It has to be something that's led from the top down. And then it's figuring out, once you execute that category, there's a great book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things, which I recommend everybody read, by Ben Horowitz. But he made a major shift inside his company to make that to become profitable, to make their company profitable. And it ended up working out for them, but they made this giant shift where they were not even in the same business anymore. And what he sat down with all those customers and said, his employees, and said, hey, we're making this shift. This is the way we're going. And if you want to be part of this, great. And if you don't want to be part of it, then here, we'll help you find a new role. We'll help you find a new place to be. And that's a huge investment. But I think, treating people right and protecting your company and protecting your category is super important. So while it might not be the easiest thing to do, once you set this strategic direction, once you sit down with your leadership team, make sure everybody's on board, and the people who are not on board with it need to be exited.
That's excellent. And we do have a question from Laura. How do you change direction once you're 3 years in? As in, you realize you can develop a new category, but you haven't marketed it that way yet. Rebrand question mark.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say no, do not rebrand. The reason what rebrand means is that means a lot of money for an agency and not a lot of money for you. I always tell companies, don't read the number one reason that CMOs get fired when they step into a new role, or even CEOs get fired when they step into a new role. The C-suite runs up against a buzzsaw because they say, we're going to put our print on this new company. We're going to rebrand. We're going to come up with a new website. We're going to, all these things. Don't spend a ton of money doing this. These things are not necessarily expensive. They're impactful. So those two things don't go hand in hand. So think about the way that I would do it is, it's not necessarily a rebrand. It's a reorganization of the communication and the way that you communicate to your customers. Will you maybe change the tagline? Potentially, but category is even deeper than just your tagline, right? So it should flow. Your tagline should flow from your category, but your tagline is not your category. Does that make sense? And so it's not that we want to rebrand. It's not that we want to come up with a new color scheme, even though sometimes, hey, that is the right thing to do in some cases. But I think people over-index towards brand again, and that's moving in that brand-led direction. Where let's just put a new coat of paint on it and call it good. That's not what we want to do. What we want to do is one of the most effective brands in the world is an ugly mermaid, right? So I always hold up Starbucks. You can look at Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola's had the same brand since 1886 or whatever it is. Well, I can't remember when they came out, but they've had the same brand forever. So I think we have the knee-jerk response to rebrand our companies and put our print on the company. And more important than that is actually just realigning the way that we communicate from top to bottom. And so it's an internal experience, it's an internal alignment of our organization, and then an external alignment of that communication to the customer. So it's an announcement. The way that functionally, the way that I would do this is once you set your category, once you decide what it is, then within 90 days, you want to have something called a lightning strike activity, where you are doing some type of announcement. It's like it's your coming out party for your new category, the way that you're viewing the problem that you face. And so that doesn't mean that you have to have a new logo at that time. And I'd say be careful not to over-index towards having a new logo or a new website or all those things. Really talk about the idea and sell against the problem and attack the problem viciously, and you can still use the same colors to do it. I don't know if that answers your question, Laura.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions from the audience? And in the meantime, Dan, while we collect these questions, where's the best place for people to interact with you or follow you?
Yeah, I'm really active on LinkedIn. So any you can look me up on LinkedIn. Please feel free to message me there. You can also email me at dan@schultzcollaborative.com, or you can go to schultzcollaborative.com and fill out our form there. and follow the newsletter, AgTech Marketing Insights. I publish on Substack, and so that it's free. So you can feel free to go out there and see if this is, maybe something you're interested in. I talk about category design, talk about different marketing strategies, different problems that the customers that I'm working with face on a weekly basis. And so try to just be part of these conversations, because again, just like this presentation, just like this conversation, as I would say, is how do we improve the overall marketing that exists in this space? Because I believe that ag tech's important. I believe that what we're doing here is important to move the industry forward and to continue, keeping it profitable. And yeah, I mean, I think this is who else is talking about how we're going to eat tomorrow and how we're going to clothe ourselves tomorrow. We really need to be focused on this space. So I'm excited about it, passionate about it, and willing to have a conversation with anybody.
Perfect. Well, Dan, thank you so much for your time today. This is an excellent presentation, and we look forward to hearing more from you, especially from your newsletter and following you on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh.
All righty. Thank you, everyone. And we'll be in contact soon.